Hello, class. Welcome to language class again. We're going to go over a few things. We're going to go over some reading, a few words I want you to pay attention to. And then after that, maybe ask you a few questions about the story that you read. Then after that, we'll dive right into our language time and go over a few items that you did on your test. I want us to make sure we understand and then go on to the new material, okay? So you have your reading book as well as your language book ready for us, okay? So you go ahead and get that, and then we'll get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just look at the words and just review them just for the sake of learning, okay? Contempt, scorn, a feeling that someone or something is worthless. Contempt. Dignity, self-respect. Dignity. Stricken, afflicted with sickness, pain, or emotion. Stricken. Sullen, unfriendly, resentful. Sullen. Superstitious, believing things out of fear and ignorance. Superstition. Tundra, a treeless plain. Tundra, vaguely, hazily, not clearly. Vaguely. Again, we talked about the snowy owl that lives in the tundra. Stricken, you've been stricken with the virus. Would be a way you could use that. Superstitious, did you read about that in your story? About the volcano and the native people there? They were superstitious, believing in things out of fear of something that would happen. So just make sure that you know those as you read your stories, because they're going to be popping up in the story. Now, what about the story you read? Remember this about the people? They were superstitious, weren't they? And we had a character in our book, Kapiolani, or Kapiolani. And some different things that you read there. If I asked you some questions, would you know the answers to the questions? It went like that. Let me see the answers. So go like that. Why were the people thrown into the fiery mountain of the volcano? And I might not ask you all of those, but yeah, they believed that there was this goddess, right? And down there, hungry, wanting food. Very superstitious, wasn't it, of what they believed about that, okay? Well, what else do we have here? So what did Kapiolani do with the royal idols? What did she do? She went ahead and what? Hit them. That's another question. Let's skip ahead here. What does the phrase, she sweetly fell asleep in Jesus, mean? What do you think that means? That question there. So her body died. When we sleep in Jesus, the body dies, but the soul is in heaven. You think she was courageous? Yes, I think she was very courageous, wasn't she? Very courageous. What are some things that we can do to show our faith in God? And this is a question all on your own. I want you to think about that. Kapiolani showed her faith in God by defying the false goddess Pio. What are some things we can do to show our faith in God? Can we show our faith in God? You think about that. And Richard, do you have an answer there? Cam, do you have an answer there? Naomi, do you have an answer to that one? How about you, Skylar? All of you are probably saying different things, or maybe some of you said the same thing. Logan, I know you've got an answer there. So think about those things, all of you, as you read your stories. And then you went ahead and you read this story, 2,000 Miles for a Book. A really neat story. Actually, it's really about how the gospel got to the Nez Perce Indians around the time of Lewis and Clark. Remember their expeditions? And so it's that time. Love that picture, don't you? And then you read that one. So how had the Nez Perce Indians heard about the Bible? Who told them about the Bible? Yeah, there were traders. Did you say traders? That they would trade things with the Indians, the Native Americans? And what town did they come to? What town did they come to? The name of the place was, if you remembered, parents, are they all remembering what they read? Might have forgotten the name of the town, but it's St. Louis, Missouri. And what did the Indians want to find? They wanted to find something. What were they searching for? Yes, this great book, the Bible, but in their own language, and someone to teach them what it means. Thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. The law of thy mouth is better unto me than thousands of gold and silver. A lot of things about the word of God at the end of your story. Why do you think the Indians were so disappointed by what they found in St. Louis? That's right. The Indians were so eager to know about this God, but the people of St. Louis were only interested in entertainment and show. They weren't really interested, even though many of them probably had heard the truth. Later, who took God's word to the Indians? Who took God's word to the Indians? And you should remember this from history class, huh? This is actually a little bit of a history lesson too. Did you say Marcus and Narcissa Whitman? And some of you at home are saying, oh yeah, we remember them, especially when you read it. Samuel and Eliza Spalding also took God's word to the Indians. And I want you to remember the words, the names, Marcus and Narcissa Whitman. They're going to show up in your history book. They've shown up in your history book this year, but in years to come, you're going to see their names again. So I want you to just to look here in my book. See that? Marcus and Narcissa Whitman, missionaries to the Indians out west. Don't forget those names. It's going to be important for history too, but it's also a good comprehension question for you for our reading time. Well, today's reading, you're not going to have a reading story, okay? I'm going to pause, and we're going to focus on language now, okay? So just a moment, make sure you get your language book ready, and we'll hop into that. Now, class, before we hop into our language book, actually, I want us to go over some things that were on our test. There are some things we missed on our test that I want to make sure you do understand. Or at least, now you might not have missed it, but someone else may have missed it. And I'm going to tell you, go over some things that several people did miss. Adverb or preposition. And this is one of the things of being apart where I don't actually see day to day being with you to help a little bit more. But we'll do the best we can. Adverb or preposition. Is it an adverb or is it a preposition? Parentheses, objects. We're going to go over those things now. Okay? So one of the things I want you to look at is over the river. That is a prepositional phrase. Starts with a preposition. It is a preposition because there's an object. So this, if that had been the blank, this would have been a preposition. I'm just going to write PREP for preposition. On the house. Does that have an object? Yes, house. That would have been a preposition too. Did you get that one right? Or one like that, right? Take some time to look around. Is that a preposition or an adverb? Is there a phrase after around? A noun? No. It's just telling, take a look where? Around. It's an adverb telling where. Adverb telling where. Come inside for lunch. there's a preposition, and I think on your test there would have been something like that one's underlined. That is that word that's underlined. Oh, and some of you were probably thinking, oh, lunch. Okay, it's a preposition because there's an object. And you wrote preposition, but wait a second. What word's right after it? Another preposition. This is the prepositional phrase for lunch. That's just an adverb. The underlined word was an adverb. And you should have written adverb. Now, look very carefully at this, because this is the kind that we missed. And I think you were thinking, oh, for, but see, that's the prepositional phrase. Yes, that's a preposition. That's not. That doesn't have its own object. Okay? Now, if you said, come inside the house for lunch, then it would. Then it would be a preposition. But it doesn't, so it's not. And that's another thing I want us to look at. Parentheses, sometimes it'll say put parentheses around the phrase. That's how you do it. Some of you were just putting parentheses around the preposition, but read the directions carefully. If it says to put it around the whole phrase, which often that's what they'll say, then put it around the whole phrase. It says circle the object. That's the object. Circle the object. On the house, parentheses around on the house. Circle the object. House is the object. Does that make sense? I hope so. So we went over what parentheses are. Those are parentheses. These sideways smiley faces, right? Objects. Those are objects. The noun after the preposition is the object, okay? Interjections. Strong emotion, weak emotion. You had a section on your test like that. If it's strong emotion, I'm putting question marks there, like what is strong emotion? It has an exclamation point. Weak emotion, it just has a comma. So for example, look back on page 213 and you will see all about interjections. Some get strong and some weak. The word wow, wow is strong. Ouch, that's strong. They might say, wow, we won, or whatever. We won our game, if you might write more. But there's gonna be more after it. Ouch, that bee stung me, and then that would be capitalized. That bee, and so on. I won't write the whole sentence, but you see, my, that's just a comma. My, you've done well, or whatever. You've done well. Oh, just gets a comma. Now, oh no, gets an exclamation point. Oh dear, gets an exclamation point, but just oh gets a comma. That's mild exclamation. Hooray! Exclamation point. Whew. Let's sit down. I'm tired. Whew. Let's sit down. Okay. So know those. I just thought of another one. A song, Onward Christian Soldiers, gets quotation marks around it. That was on your test too, putting quotes around a song. And most of you knew that, but there was one part there. I think it was like the word church. Many people missed it because it was like that. What needs to go there? The church's foundation is Jesus, right? Apostrophe S. Guess what? That was left out. So it wasn't correct. You have to put the apostrophe S. So be really careful that any little thing that's not there can make it incorrect on those. When in the section where you're putting I for incorrect or C for correct, that's not correct, is it? It is now because I put it, but before it wasn't. Can you divide and multiply easily? Let's diagram this. First of all, does everyone doing that? Michael, are you doing that? Are you putting a line there and then the vertical line? Colin, are you doing that? Everyone, are you doing that? Is everyone doing that? That's the very first thing you do. I have seen some that just are writing words, but they haven't drawn. It doesn't matter if there's a line here, you still draw this, okay? Can you divide? Now it starts with a question, so we need to make it a statement. What's the verb? Divide. That's something you can do, isn't it? Divide. Divide. Who or what? Divide. And actually, I need to add something there, don't I? There's a helping verb, right? Actually, I'm just going to cross that out because I just realized something. Cross it out. Is there a helping verb? Can is a helper. Can divide. Whenever there's a question, sometimes the helping verb gets split. So, can divide and multiply. Ooh, it's two verbs. So what needs to go here? Look here, this is a very interesting diagram. That's why I wanted to show this one. There's two things, divide and multiply, so it's compound. Do my dotted line, because you know what goes there. Divide. Multiply. I'm coming to the end of my paper because I'm writing on a book. Okay? There's a conjunction. The conjunction goes here. The and. Now, why is can there though? Because we're saying can divide and can multiply. Now the sentence doesn't read, can you divide and can you multiply? No. But the can is referring to divide and multiply. Can divide. So we put the can here, but these are compound. See, but there's just one can, right? There's just one can. Now, if it said, can you divide and can you multiply? Then you'd have can divide, can multiply. But that's not how it is it? Who or what can? You can. You goes here. Notice you is not capitalized because it's not the first word of the sentence, but can is, so it's going to be capitalized. You can divide and multiply. Multiply easily. How? Easily, but it's just referring to that. It's just referring to easily. I'm sorry, the easily is just referring to multiplying because it's the word it comes after. That's the one, okay? That's an adverb. Notice, adverb under the verb. Not the easiest one to diagram. Replay this as many times as it takes to understand these diagrams because a number of you, I could tell, did not really understand the diagrams. So go over this. And parents, if you're there, make sure they understand this because this may be maybe a few times doing it to make sure we understand. Let's do this one. James ran ahead very quickly. James ran ahead very quickly. Put the line, horizontal line, vertical line. That's the first thing you do. Draw a horizontal line, vertical line. Then we always start with our verb and our subject. Some of you are still having trouble finding the verb and the subject, and we're going on to adverbs and adjectives and many, many other things. So you really need to know this for 5th grade, okay? So first find the action word, ran. Always check, make sure it's not compound like the other one. I ran ahead of myself, didn't I? Ran. Who or what ran? James ran. James is the subject. Always practice neat handwriting. use cursive writing for this class. Notice the number of you that have just thrown cursive writing out the window. Whoops. Sorry about that. We need to keep doing cursive writing. If it's a sentence, it needs to be in cursive writing for everything you do. All right. Unless it's a letter in the blank on a test where you're just writing A, B, C, then you print. But anytime there's words, you need to use cursive writing. Especially now that you're not having like a page every day. So James, you can do that. James ran. Let's look at the other words here. Ahead, very quickly. What's ahead telling us? It's telling us where he ran. What answers the question where? Adverb. So ran, where? Ahead. Ran ahead. Very quickly. Ran ahead. Can we say ran very? No. Can we say ran quickly? Yes. How did he run? Quickly. Right? Where, when, how. How often, to what extent? Where, when, how. How often, to what extent? That's where he ran. You see that? But what about quick? What about very? Very is not describing ran. Very is describing what? Very quickly. How quickly? Very quickly. Very is describing how quickly. See? And if it describes another adverb, we do this. We have another line with an extension. See that? Like that. I'll turn my paper. Very. And I'm going to tell you, often that's what very does. Very good. Very quickly. So you might want to learn about the word very. Very often modifies an adjective or an adverb. Okay? So learn that for the word very. Can you do that? I think you can. I think you can. So learn that, replay this as many times as it takes to understand where the different parts of the sentence go as you diagram. Now I know that took more time because that's not even part of our lesson. That's just going over the test. So this video gets a little bit longer. I'm trying not to make it go too long, but I think that this is very important. This test is like the climax of 4th grade. In other words, everything that comes after is that review. It's running down to close out. We're doing things that starts closing out the year. Still really important, but this is like the heightened climax of what we really have to know for 5th grade. So this test 10, we need to know everything. So boys, girls, 4th graders, tell your parents that. Parents, if you're watching, really important, really important. And we'll keep practicing them, and there's time to practice, but keep that in mind. You know, we went on to the dictionary and those kind of things too, and I think, you know, there were a couple of things there, but we'll keep going. I want us to go and review yesterday. We talked about singular and plural verbs, okay? Notice, let's memorize these. Is, was, and has are singular. Are, were, and have are plural. He is, they are. He was, they were. She has, they have. Notice the S at the end of singular verbs, but not on the plural ones. So that's a good way to help you know. Singular means one person, one place, or one thing is doing this, okay, or has this verb. Does that make sense? He is a good boy. Is singular. He is singular. The S. They are coming soon. Notice are is plural. They is more than one. They is plural. Are is plural. So they agree, right? Larry sings well. Sings is singular. Larry is one person. Larry is singular. Singular. Notice the S. Steve often trips on the stairs. Uh-oh. Notice trips. S, singular. Steve, one person, singular. Trips. But Karen and Lucy don't trip often. Trip, plural. Karen and Lucy. More than one person, so plural, right? So one trips, but two or more trip. Notice the S, S, S for the singular ones. Good trick to think in your mind, okay? Now we're going to go on with our subject and verb agreement, and this is what's new for today. So let's look at it. Subject-verb agreement. The subject may not be in a prepositional phrase. The subject may not be in a prepositional phrase. Did you see that? Not. What do I mean by that? I mean, if there's a preposition, it cannot be the subject. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Yes, we'll talk about that in a minute. Actually, I might just go and tell you that now. The subject may not be in a prepositional phrase. I need to go ahead and just show you that. Look. Don't let the prepositional phrase confuse you, because it may come between the subject and the verb. So don't let it confuse you. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to just show you the first one. The sound of many voices was heard. Why is it was? Voices is not the subject. Do you see that? It might be easy to think, okay, was voices, and you're going to think that's the subject of the sentence. Who was, who or what was, voices was. No. Here's the rule. If it's in a prepositional phrase, of is a preposition. I want you to cross out the preposition so it doesn't confuse you. And what's left? What was? The sound was. Now, if you thought it was voices, you might be tempted to put were. Voices were. But voices is not the subject. Do you understand that? Am I clear enough? The subject is not in a prepositional phrase. So look ahead. Is there a preposition? Then it's not the subject. The other one is the subject. The one that is not in a preposition, a prepositional phrase. So a preposition may not be the subject. Look at the next one. See? Of subjects and verbs. The study of subjects and verbs is very important, or are very important. You could say verbs are very important, right? If your sentence was just verbs are very important, it would be are. But look, because there's a preposition, the study of subjects and verbs, we cross out. Why? To not so it won't confuse us. Whenever you see a prepositional phrase, just cross it out on a section like this if it tells you to. And it's going to tell you to in this section. Cross out the prepositional phrase, and what's left will be the subject. Study is. Something is or something are. Study is, because it's singular. You see that? So you go back to this. The subject may not be in a prepositional phrase. That's what I mean. Now, rule number 2 for today. There and here are not subjects. I want you to memorize the word there and the word here are not subjects. They are not subjects. The noun that comes after the verb will be the subject in sentences that begin with there or here. Okay? In such sentences, look for words after the verb. Here is water in the desert. You might be tempted to say, okay, the verb is, here is, and you're going to think that's the subject. No, I want you to memorize the words there and here are not the subject. So just memorize that. Look for what comes after the verb. What is in the desert? Water is in the desert. Here is water in the desert. Here is water in the desert. The water is. So if we were underlining the verb 2 times and underlining the subject once, it'd be like this, which is different. Often the subject comes first, but not always. The subject is water because here is never the subject. There are 2 sides to every question. The verb is are, isn't it? It's on our list as a verb, as a being or helping verb. Who or what are? We're tempted to think there are, but remember, there and here are never the subject. So what comes after the verb? What? There are 2 sides to every question. There are what? Okay, sides are. Not 2, that's an adjective describing sides. How many sides, right? So, sides are, right? Sides are. So, look, if you see here or there, look after the verb for the noun, and that will most likely be the subject of the sentence. I hope that that helps you today. As you do your paper, you're going to be looking at page 100 or 233 and 234. Go over this, study it, and you should be able to do that. You're going to be looking at, let me peek here. Yeah, you're going to pick what verb it is. If it gets an S on it, singular, okay? So you're going to have to pick the right verb, but you're also going to have to pick the subject and cross out the prepositional phrase so that you can pick the correct subject. And then the next section I think is a little easier actually. So you'll be able to do that. Then I'm flipping around here. You're gonna just pick the word and you're gonna be labeling, like pronoun, verb. Can you pick every word in this sentence? There'll be a section like that. So put PRO over it if it's a pronoun, or noun if it's a noun, or V if it's a verb. And on that section, it would be okay to, if you wanted to print, you can do that because it's just abbreviations and letters, okay? All right, well, you take care and keep working at these and do a super job. Really work hard on the language. Language, I feel like, probably needs the most emphasis of anything else right now, as really needing to get really good at it, okay? I do hope that this helped you, class. And again, I miss you, and I hope you do a really good job in language today. And I want you to what? Be looking for the next video. You take care.